Somewhere, amid this colored canopy, autumn's last leaf is about to join winter's first snowflake on the forest floor. This year, we're battling to beat the frost. If we fail to chink the interior before it arrives, the mortar won't have enough time to properly cure. Ideally, we needed the temperature to stay above 4 degrees Celsius or 39 degrees Fahrenheit for at least a week, which would give the chinking enough cure time to withstand the coming freeze without cracking. Unfortunately, Jack Frost wasn't going to give us a week, so we needed to work fast.
Might need some of your stuff possibly, or get some more wood.
The cabin has now been chinked from top to bottom, but we weren't out of the woods yet, so to speak. The temperature was already hovering just above freezing, which meant that the mortar would cure much slower than usual. So we ran the small propane heater in the cabin to help things along and to keep the frost at bay. Although the heater helped, what the cabin really needed was a wood stove. But before we get to its installation, I'd like to thank Policy Genius for sponsoring this episode. If someone relies on your financial support, whether it's a child, aging parent, or even a business partner, you need life insurance. Policy Genius makes it easy to compare quotes from over a dozen top insurers all in one place. Why compare? You could save 50% or more on life insurance by comparing quotes with Policy Genius. The licensed experts at Policy Genius work for you, not the insurance companies, so you can trust them to help you find the best deal. And eligible applicants can get covered in as little as a week thanks to an award-winning policy option that swaps the standard medical exam requirement for a simple phone call. This exclusive policy was recently rated #1 by Forbes Advisor. Getting started is easy. First, head to policygenius.com/The Outsider. In minutes, you can work out how much life insurance coverage you need and compare personalized quotes to find your best price. When you're ready to apply, the Policy Genius team will handle the paperwork and scheduling for free, no extra fees. Head to policygenius.com/The Outsider to get started right now. Considering that the stove weighs over 300 pounds, we decided to let the old Massey do the heavy lifting. It was clear that the stove needed a little TLC. In addition to having surface rust, the corroded handle had completely seized, and the door gaskets were in bad shape. So before bringing it into the cabin, it first had to be brought back to its former glory.
Oh, that broke. Except that we'll
Now, to prevent the rust from returning, the stove needed a coating of high heat paint. We prepped the stove by heating it with a propane torch, providing a warm and dry surface for the paint to quickly cure on. With the stove painted, door handle greased, and gaskets replaced, the stove was ready to be lifted into the cabin. Our stove was now nestled safely within the cabin, ready to be hooked up, which was just as well, because our first snowfall was already on the way. Although this covering wouldn't stay long, an even bigger snowstorm was on its heels. Thankfully, we managed to keep the chinking warm enough for long enough to allow for a proper cure, ahead of the first snowfall. We were officially in the clear. Our next job was to reinforce the floor underneath the stove.
Okay, so you measured here, I can't remember now, here to the line.
I measured to the line.
Okay.
Oh, like, if you want me to measure this way, I'm measuring this way.
Yeah, I suggest measuring from there to there and then over here too.
So 68.5 will be up here.
Yeah.
So when you're ready.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The 2-inch poplar boards span across 4 floor joists, which will evenly distribute the weight of the stove and hearth. Although I love the look of the hearth as is, we will eventually lay stone and mortar on top. However, since it's too cold to do that now, I'll be using a patio stone in the interim. Some of you may be wondering why I'm placing the male end of the stovepipe downward. The reason is that it prevents wind-blown rain and, more importantly, creosote from getting behind the seams and leaking to the outside of the pipe as it runs down. In which case, if the creosote were to ignite on the outside of the stovepipe, the fire would quickly spread up toward the roof and the rest of the cabin from there. Creosote is undesirable in any circumstance, but it's much better to let it run down into the stove as opposed to inside the cabin. And as far as the rising smoke is concerned, there's no need to worry about it escaping from the downward facing seams, because a stove with good draw will pull air into the pipe instead of pushing smoke out. The stove is officially hooked up and ready for its first fire. Not a moment too soon either, as the second snowfall had already arrived.
First smoke.
This is a moment which words fail to describe. Two years ago, my dad and I celebrated another milestone right here in this very spot. Although the cabin looked quite different back then. We had just tarped the roof before winter. So we decided to commemorate the partial dry-in with a skillet of Canadian bacon and a cup of coffee. That too was a moment I'll never forget. And now we're here, having another cup of coffee in front of the wood stove. There's still lots to do to have the cabin ready for Christmas, but that'll have to be for the next episode. As for right now though, we're going to enjoy the fire a little longer. Until next time, my friends, stay safe, Be well, and God bless.